Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Daily Download here on SheKnowsArsenal. We're going to be going through Arsenal's most recent news and transfer news. Welcome back. If you're new, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel. It's free and it helps this channel get out there. You guys, so on today's show, we're going to be going through quite a bit. So I want to chat to you guys about Arsenal's interest in Cody Gakpo, as well as the Tielemans latest, what's going on with that. I do also spoke on Saka's contract, and Pablo Mari looks to be getting closer and closer to Fenerbahce. Arsenal also rejected a bid for Bellerin from Betis, and Leno to Fulham looks like it's getting closer. So we're going to cover all those things here on the channel today. You know how I like to do things, give you guys the sources and, where you guys can find this information, kind of talk about what's being reported, and then kind of give our take on what we think is actually going on. I have a community poll going on right now about Tielemans, and basically I want to know from your guys' perspective, do you think that Arsenal will sign Tielemans this window? It goes like this, right? It's like at the beginning of the window, it was like yes, then it dipped down to no. Now it's probably going back up. So I want to hear what you guys have to say in regards to that. There's 91 of you guys in here, which is amazing. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now, obviously, off of the back of like our preseason game against Chelsea, I do think there's a lot more optimism and positivity around the club. And so do you guys feel, now that you guys have seen Arsenal play against, a rival, are you feeling like we're more prepared this time around than we were last time? And where do you kind of sit in regards to like how much should we take away from this preseason game? I've seen everything from it doesn't mean anything to we're winning the league. So where do you guys kind of sit with that? Because I guess my take on it is that I'm definitely excited, for the start of the season. I do think that Arsenal need to get a quick start with the games that we have at the beginning, and then how difficult it's going to get kind of in the fall. So for me, it's not so much about the result. It's about the way that we want to play, and are we able to execute that with the players that we have? And it looks like the things that we've been trying to do over the last couple of seasons that we've kind of not been able to get 100% right have kind of all clicked together now with the addition of William Saliba, Alexander Zinchenko, and Gabriel Jesus. So for me, I'm feeling like from what I saw, especially against Chelsea, that we're good. We look like a team that's fit, a team that's energized and hungry, and the ideas that Arteta is trying to get across to the team seem to be working. So yeah, like I do think that I'm excited from that perspective. Do I think that like this preseason game against Chelsea, beating them 4-0 means that, we're going to be pushing for the title or second or anything like that? I would just say, looking at that Chelsea team, looking at the way that they played, I wouldn't necessarily come to those conclusions. I do think we need to like pull back just a little bit from those types of predictions. But in terms of like, do we look like a better team? Do we look like we're ready to start the season? Do we look fit and hungry? Yes, all of those things are great. So yeah, we look like a team that's serious. And I do think that a lot of people are watching that game. More people than I think we probably, usually during preseason, you're like, okay, we'll be watching it. Chelsea fans will be watching it, but our rivals were watching that game as well. And I do think that there's a sense of Arsenal are probably a lot more serious than we thought that they were going to be. You know, People try to convince themselves that Gabriel Jesus wasn't a level raiser. Well, he is. Try to convince themselves that Saliba was average. He's not. And everything just seemed to really click. So for me, like, that's kind of what I want to see. Am I going to go as far to say we're going to win the league? No. Do I think a lot of that was said in jest? Absolutely. But man, like, I thought we were looking pretty good there. Looking pretty good there. Um, let's see. I haven't seen anything about Jesus being injured. I just saw that he actually sustained that thigh injury in the first half. I remember when he got it. And then he played through it, and then he couldn't play any longer. And they didn't want to take any risks. So I haven't actually seen that he's going to be injured, for the beginning of the season or anything like that. I haven't seen anything like that. So yeah. And Eddie, okay. Oh, is this like a hypothetical? Oh, what in your opinion and who will you depend on as a striker? Um, Jesus and Eddie and Pepe being sold doesn't seem like a likely scenario, to be honest. Like all of those players at once, or the two strikers plus Pepe not being there. And if that were to happen, then you'd have to maybe play Emil Smith Rowe through the middle. You could play, just a front three of forwards, I think, but this is like a very unlikely scenario for me. D Cunningham says, I'm cautiously optimistic, but agree we should start strong to gain confidence. This is a season of two halves. We need to warm up more quickly than we normally do. Tony says it's not about who we played, it's about how we look and Arsenal look ready for the season. Keenan says preseason is more about form than results. I think it's a really good sign that our players have gelled and all are playing at levels that we expect. And, when you look at a player like Zinchenko that has never played with those players except for Gabriel Jesus before, to come straight in and look like it makes sense. And honestly, that's how most of our signings have been over the last two seasons or three transfer windows with Gabriel and Thomas Partey. Like it made sense. Willian didn't really make as much sense, but Gabriel and Thomas, they came straight in and you kind of understood what we were trying to do, even though the rest of the team wasn't quite there. The next season, you added on the layer of Ramsdale, Ben White, Odegaard, Tomiyasu, and the two young players in Tavares and Sambi. Those players all pretty much made sense. They slotted right in and everything just seemed to click, especially I think we played against Norwich early on last season after we had lost those 3 games. And even though we didn't score a lot of goals, I think we beat them 1-0. Sorry, the chair is squeaking. We only beat them 1-0. It was kind of like you could tell, okay, this makes a lot of sense. Now you add Zinchenko and Gabriel Jesus, and you're getting like the exact same feeling. So the gelling, the profile of players making sense. You look at Chelsea, and it's just a small sample size. I'm sure Sterling will get up to speed, but it didn't really look like that was the plan that they had envisioned for Sterling. If it was, it didn't look right because he wasn't as like with the rest of his team because they're kind of like not prepared at all, and that's the thing about Chelsea. You're looking at them right now and you're like, they're not really prepared at all. They don't look fit. They're not really playing their starting 11 yet. By now, you should be looking at the starting 11 and seeing something that looks like what you're going to start off with on the first day of the season. And Sterling didn't have as big of an impact or didn't look as gelled in or locked in with that group as Zinchenko did with us. Again, Zinchenko, has only been here for like 5 minutes. So I do think we look ready, which is exactly what a lot of us were talking about. We have to start the season quickly. So yeah, I think I'm excited about everything that we're doing so far. Again, wouldn't go as far as some of the things that I've seen out there, but we definitely look a lot more ready to start, which makes me feel a lot better. So there's about 200 of you guys in here. Like that video, subscribe to the channel. Let's get into it. So Arsenal do have concrete interest in Cody Gakpo. Let's get into it. So this is coming from This is coming from Voetbal International, which is a Dutch publication. And God, I always get this guy's name messed up. Rick Elfrink. He's actually the journalist that came on to the latte firm, FK's channel, to do the breakdown on Cody Gakpo when we were initially linked to him at the beginning of the window. And so he's reliable. It's not an in the know. That's what I'm going to say. It's not an in the know. It's a credible journalist. But again, none of these reports about Cody Gakpo have necessarily been underpinned by any English media. But Arsenal's interest in Gakpo is concrete. PSV will try to keep him for one more year. A fee of 40 million euros will not be enough. They don't want to sell him. Excuse me. They don't want to sell him. Not right now. There's also like a little bit of like they're trying to qualify for the Champions League right now. They have like playoffs. And then so those games are like at the beginning of August. So they definitely want to keep him until then. So if we were to want to get Cody Gakpo, it wouldn't happen soon. It would happen later on towards the end of the window. According to Dutch football analyst Odd de Moss, he says PSV should try to keep Gakpo for another year, but it will be difficult to fend off interest once Champions League qualifiers are over. Arsenal leads actively interested. So that's what he said about that. And this is coming from Steph DeBont, which is another journalist that works for Voteball International. Says that there's still a chance Cody Gakpo joins Arsenal, who have rekindled their interest in the player. PSV hope to keep him this summer, but if he leaves, it will be after PSV's UCL qualifying matches versus Monaco. So that's kind of like the gist of it all. I do think that what I'll say about this whole scenario with the left winger, right winger, like what is it? I think it's fluid and it's going to be based on what the market is offering. I do think that Arsenal going after Rafinha, who's nominally a right winger, that's left-footed, that's 25 years old or something like that, is kind of probably the profile that Arsenal most want. Again, like Charles Watt said, they're looking for somebody to compete with Bukayo Saka, and also like step in for him. So you'd see like, we're linked to Rafinha, and Cody Gakpo is kind of the opposite of that. He's a left winger stroke striker. So he doesn't really compete with Saka. He would actually be more competing with Martinelli and ESR. So for me, I do think it's more important to bring in a right winger. But the market kind of dictates what you can do. And the right wing market is not great. Once Rafinha was gone, it was more like, okay, so now who else can we get that's left-footed that can play on the right-hand side? You look at Sané. I still feel like that's a pipe dream. I still see a lot of Arsenal fans feeling like that's likely. I don't think it's likely. It doesn't feel real. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. So I wouldn't necessarily be holding my breath for something like that. And then beyond that, if you look at Premier League proven players, you're looking at like Jared Bowen and Pedro Neto. Now, Jared Bowen is supposedly the secret winger that we were looking at. I do think that we probably contacted his representatives, but ultimately, like West Ham or no, like they're not in any circumstance where they need to sell. And with them wanting to really invest in their squad, they look like they're going to bring in Philip Kostic as well as Skamaka and Zielinski from, I think he was at Napoli. So they're looking to really invest in their squad, and I think they're going to try to make a push for Champions League. So it wouldn't make any sense for them to sell Jared Bowen, and if they were, it would cost an arm and a leg. So you look at Jared Bowen, that doesn't look likely. So I put him kind of in the Sané, category where, yes, it fits the profile. And in certain circumstances, it does make sense. But ultimately, there's too many obstacles in the way. Then you look at somebody like Pedro Neto, who is probably ideal, but he just signed a long-term contract. So he's going to cost an arm and a leg. If Wolves want 75 million for Ruben Neves, what do you think they're going to want for Pedro Neto, who, to me, I think has a higher ceiling? So I just don't see that as being likely either. You also want to kind of see what he's like coming back from that knee injury. You don't want to buy him and spend 75, 80 million or something like that on him, and he continuously has these knee injuries. That doesn't make any sense. So even though, again, a left footer that can play on the right-hand side and also play on the left, it doesn't really seem likely. So when you look at the market, there are options, but what are the obstacles that would make that um, maybe more unlikely? So I can see why I would be looking at players on the left side because even if you can't improve the right, you can improve the left um, if you wanted to. So I can see where the Cody Gakpo interest is there. Um, do I think it's likely? I'm not sure because 40 million euros for Cody Gakpo, even though he was named, the best player in the Eredivisie. I think they're gonna try to push it kinda like how Ajax pushed Lisandro Martinez and how they're ultimately gonna push Antony as well. They don't wanna sell, they don't have to sell, and so they're gonna want a lot of money for a player that may not be worth that, and I don't see Arsenal paying over the odds for this player. So, yeah, I'm looking at this like it depends on the price. I don't think it gets done quickly if it does happen because of course he needs to stay for the qualifying rounds for the Champions League. But I do think there's something there in that. I just don't know how serious. Um, let's see. Troy says, "Hi, Jess. Hello, everyone. Hi to you as well." William says, "I think ESR is best as an 8." You guys talking about ESR? Let's see. Let's see. Um, let's see. Sorry, you guys. I'm looking to see like because some of your stuff is like mixed up with your own conversations, which is fine. John P says rather go for Elise, or Neto. Um, I don't think people like when I don't get a sense of like a lot of people really wanting Gakpo. Rodney says Gakpo, if he says he does want to leave Feyenoord, they have no choice. And by bringing up the transfer will be detrimental to Feyenoord. Simply Gakpo would not want to play. Um, I don't think that I think if he wants to leave, like, they'll have to go ahead and let him go. They'll want an arm and a leg, and that's where I kind of think, like, "Okay, how much is it actually gonna cost?" They're saying upwards of 40 million euros, like, we don't run it running into the 50, into the 50, 55 million euro mark, do we? Mikey says, Arsenal buy according to their valuation, but this wide forward situation might see them exceed the ideal price as the window closes. It just depends, I think. Osman says, Jess, um, if we sign Tielemans and Gakpo, if every player is fit, what would be your default starting lineup? Um, the lineup that started against Crystal Palace plus Tielemans instead of Granit Xhaka. Everything else would stay the same. My thing about he does play for PSV. I know somebody said Feyenoord, and I said Feyenoord as well, but he does play for PSV. Um, I think with Gakpo, it's just about adaptation. I do think he's a super talented player that could also, somebody was asking, like, well, what would you do if Nketiah and Jesus were both injured and Pepe was gone? What would you do for center forward? Gakpo could solve that issue for us because he can play a striker position, or nine, whatever. But it just depends on adaptation. Like I just look at the league, Eredivisie, think about, the players that have come from that league and kind of struggled. You look at Donny van der Beek, you look at Hakim Ziyech. Those are the most recent, examples I look at and think, does he need another club to step up to first? Does he immediately, unseat Martinelli? I'm not sure. So he's definitely somebody that, you know, um, that I think is extremely talented. I just don't know how long it will take him to get um, up to speed. And also, like when I saw him play against Leicester, that was kind of me trying to figure out. And I know that this is a small sample size, and he's playing for PSV, not Arsenal. But when I saw him play against Leicester, I did think that he struggled a little bit. I do think that he held onto the ball too long. He wasn't really, clinical in front of goal. Like there's just some things where I thought, okay, he might be a little bit further away than we originally thought. Lynn says, I think that Arsenal are waiting to get the price down for Anthony, and then I think they may punch so there isn't a bidding war. Anthony, um, I don't think we're interested in Anthony. I haven't seen anything about being interested in Anthony. And Manchester United are gonna be all on that, so I'm not quite sure about the Anthony thing. I'm gonna say this about Anthony is that, like, Cody Gakpo was far and beyond the best player in the Eredivisie last season. Had like 18 goals and like 15 assists or something like that. Anthony had like less than half of that, and he was playing on the best team. He's nowhere near worth what they're asking. He's probably worth somewhere around 30 million, maximum 40. You're going to have to pay upwards of 50 million for him. So I wouldn't want Anthony. I don't think he's anywhere near the valuation that they're putting. And Ajax are just trying to get as much as possible because they've sold so many players. So I don't know about Anthony interest. Maybe there is some, and I don't know anything about it, but it's a no for me. He may pop at United, but I just can't see it. Troy says, "The players we think Arsenal are signing is not the player we are looking. They are looking Bowen, Trossard, Gakpo, and even Tielemans. We just don't know. I like Gakpo and Tielemans. Would love to see them." Well, I would say not necessarily. Like, we were linked to Zinchenko, and we ended up with Zinchenko. We were linked to Gabriel Jesus, and we ended up with Gabriel Jesus. I know that there's a lot of links out there, but I think what people do is they say, okay, well, if these journalists aren't talking about it, it can't possibly be real, right? And so I do think that we have like this misconception that we have one target, that's it, and everything else is just pure lies. So there's the truth is somewhere in the middle. There's a gray area here that Arsenal probably have 3 or 4 targets for one position. They have like an opportunity, the person that they really want, and then a couple of like extra options just in case the first 1 or 2 fall through. So interest can really just be contacting the agent, sending a WhatsApp message and saying, "What would it take to get your client, to Arsenal?" That's interest. So maybe the Netherlands, Dutch media are hyping it up, but that doesn't mean that Arsenal don't have any interest just because Fabrizio Romano and Ornstein are not talking about it. But it could just be as simple as interest is asking what it would take. Let's just, talk about personal terms broadly or something like that. Or asking the club, is this person available? What would it take to get him? So I think we get really bogged down in like who the information is coming from. Because it do even kind of talk about what the interest was like for Rafinha. And because Ornstein and Fabrizio Romano were really talking about it, we thought that Arsenal were like really like nailed on for Rafinha. But he, cleared things up, and it wasn't even like that. So just because Ornstein and Fabrizio Romano are the main people that we consider reliable, they also get information from agents and different, or the club, and are told to put that stuff out there, but that's not necessarily always the truth, right? So interest, there's probably is interest for Gakpo. Whether or not he's on top of the list, we don't know. But I don't necessarily feel like it's just if Ornstein or Fabrizio Romano doesn't say it, that doesn't mean that means that there's nothing in it, like whatsoever. You know what I'm saying? Asher says Gakpo is very smart investment, but more so a fantastic young talent who's very direct. Love the idea of it personally. What I will say about Gakpo is that it's a profile that we don't have in the team. We have a lot of like smaller players that are really neat and tidy on the ball, but he is a natural goal scorer. We lack natural, like when we spoke about this the other day and somebody was like, "Oh, well, Saka's not a natural goal scorer." We don't have players that like, have that in them. I do think Cody Gakpo fits that category of a natural goal scorer. He's more of a inside forward than a winger. He's not a chalk on boots type of guy. He's not there to do the one-on-one duels. He's going straight to the goal and trying to hit that ball. And so what I do like is that if he could get up to speed, if we were to sign him, if he were to get up to speed, what he has that some of our players don't is just that ball striking, that pure, like I'm going for goal no matter what. My first thought is to shoot. And so he would help with that. And he's a lot taller than some of our other players. He's like 6'2". I saw somebody saying like he looks rigid. And I'm like, that's because he's 6'2". Like he's not going to move the same as a player that's shorter, lower center of gravity, a little bit more manipulative. He is a tall, straight back running striker. Like, that's what he is. So Rodney says 100% agree with your psychology by Arsenal PR and send it to like Fabrizio Romano, Dan Jacobs. I mean, the whole thing about like Arsenal need to sell players and all this kind of stuff in order to bring somebody in. I just definitely think that that's like Arsenal sending out the message. I don't think we have to sell players to bring in funds, but we probably want to move some players on and also just leave Tielemans to the very end and see if Leicester will break. So I do think sometimes we get way too bogged down in who's saying it, as long as it's not an in the know, and we know what those in the know accounts look like. If it's not them and it's a credible journalist, think about what do they gain from making up something and completely fabricating it. Again, interest could have come from like Gakpo's agent. Gakpo's agent goes out there and says, I have this information. Arsenal are interested. They asked what it would take to get my client here. So we have interest. Does that mean we're putting in a bid? No. Does that make sense? Tala says, Gakpo has great potential, but unproven. I reckon we get a striker who has scored 12 to 15 goals in the league for the last couple of seasons. Who is that though, Tala? Like, I think that's the issue here, is that there's a gap between proven. Like Sané would probably be the number one option for everybody. Proven in the league, outside of our league, left-footed, really good, would completely move the needle. Then you have the next group down that included Rafinha, Bowen, Neto, these guys, maybe Olise you put in there because if you really rate him, but there's a lot of obstacles in terms of how we can make those things happen. Then there's the unproven younger players, your what's that guy's name? What is that guy's name? He the young Belgian winger that everybody really liked during the last Euros, like somebody like him, a Gakpo, Sulemana, like these types who are a little bit more like get them before Leicester get them before Brighton get them before Leeds get them, that kind of thing. There's a couple. De Ketelaere, whatever his name is, Noah Lang. There's another one. He's like a real winger. Let me look it up now. It's going to kill me. It's going to kill me. It's going to kill me now. Everybody was on this guy. Doku. That's the one I was talking about. So you have those two, and I do think Cody Gakpo kind of fits in that category of get them before the other teams get them, but maybe they don't actually move the needle right now, but they're kind of something for the future. If that's what you're going to get, it has the price has to be right, and then maybe you decide to spend a little bit more on midfield instead, or you'd go ahead and get the left-sided center back instead. So it just depends on what Arsenal want to do with this. Would I be upset if we signed Cody Gakpo? No, but would I be instantly thinking that he unseats Martinelli? No, I wouldn't. But that's kind of my thoughts on that, really. Yep, Doku. Lucas says Olise makes so much sense as Saka's backup, but he's not a goal scorer we need though. And that's really the issue here is like, what's the goal? We have a lot of really nice, creative playmaking types, but do we have any, like when you put Gabriel Jesus up there, you have a killer, you have a real killer. Saka and Martinelli are still kind of working out the kinks of their goal scoring. Like some days they're clinical, other days they're not. Some days they defer to the other players. Sometimes they take responsibility. And so what you kind of want is somebody that is going to be an immediate goal threat. And so another kind of creative midfielder type guy, I'm not sure that's actually what we need. So Olise he would be great at Arsenal, but is he actually what we need? Probably not. Amala Shock says Arsenal really should search for a penetrating kind of goal scorer. Yeah, it's one of those where I think we need to be looking for something a little bit different. So yeah, I like Gakpo, but we'll see what happens with that. I also like the idea of if we can't get a very expensive winger, that really moves the needle. Like basically, if we can't get a Sane type and everybody else is kind of overpriced and doesn't really fit what we're trying to do, to go for somebody like Trossard, who is probably not going to cost as much because he has 1 year left on his deal. I think the initial price that was out there was like 15 million or something like that. Somebody who does have Premier League experience, is a little bit older, does score goals, but can also play like a lot of different positions, and it would allow you to spend more on midfield. I'd be interested in that if we couldn't get anything else. There's 370 of you guys in here. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Let's move into the Tielemans latest. Let me check this community poll and also check the likes. There's 370 of you guys watching. There's 122 likes. Make sure you guys smash the likes for me. I really appreciate it. And 67% of you guys are saying yes, Tielemans will be signed by the end of the window. 33% of you guys say no. So yeah, most people think yes. So in terms of Tielemans, the most recent that I saw on him is that I think the sporting director at Leicester said there hasn't been anything, there's been no offers, there's been nothing, which we expect him to say, because I think where we're at with this is pretty much where we've been at the entire time. Personal terms are probably already agreed, constant contact with his agent, but we either A, have another target that if we can get them at a certain price, or, depending on what happens with the winger, we may have enough money to get them. We'll go for them instead. Or option 2 is that we want to whittle Leicester down to a better price, because we know that Tielemans is only interested in coming to Arsenal. I saw now this guy, I don't really know if he's really super reliable or not, but Ahmad, whatever his name is, on Twitter, has said that there's an agreement. Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll talk about this too, about Leno. But hold on, you guys. I just want to make sure I pull it up. Where is it? Oh my gosh, where is it? That Arsenal and Yuri Tielemans have an agreement. There are still factors to be completed in order for the deal to happen, but the information is confirmed. So not quite sure how reliable he is, to be honest, but we're pretty much in the same spot that we've been in for the duration of the window. He's waiting. We're doing whatever, and we just have to wait and see if we're going to get it done. So for me with the Tielemans situation is like, the more I watch him play, the more convinced I am that this player would be perfect for us. He kind of fits the mold with everybody else, where he really wants to come to Arsenal, which is a really good thing. Like, I only really want players that really want to come to Arsenal. I know that you have to do some convincing. Like, I understand that Gabriel Jesus had to talk to Zinchenko to convince him to come. But ultimately, like, it wasn't like he came kicking and screaming. Zinchenko did want to come. With Tielemans, he does want to come to Arsenal. That's what the reports are saying. So I really like that. But the more that you look at him, you think, what could his passing unlock? This is not like a shade on Granit Xhaka or anything like that. But there's just a different level of what he can do in the final third. We don't really have that player in what we have now. Vieira could potentially be that player, but he's a very young player, so we don't know what his level is. But Tielemans, 25, Premier League proven, good market opportunity, could definitely step in. And like, if for some reason something happened to Thomas Partey, I would feel a lot more comfortable if we had Tielemans and Granit Xhaka rather than just El Neni and Granit Xhaka. Um, so I'm looking at this like, I think this is going to get done. It's just going to get done a little bit later. But in terms of where we're at with this, it's just where we kind of been at. Leicester and Arsenal seem to be playing chicken. If I did, guess what I think it is it that we have another target that we really want, and if we could get them instead, we'll go after them and Tielemans is a number 2, or do I think we're trying to whittle down the price? I think we're trying to whittle down the price. Now, Manchester United are also interested in Tielemans. I don't know if this is just in case Frankie de Jong falls apart, or in like plus Frankie de Jong, like they want Tielemans and Frankie de Jong, but that would worry me just a little bit, just because I do know Manchester United are the kind of club that they don't care about price. Like they're very just like, if we want a player, we'll just slap the money down and overpay. And the last thing we really want is to get down to the end of the window, and we could have wrapped this up for 30 million. Manchester United put a 40 million pound bid down, and then all of a sudden we're doing that, instead. So this is just, like Tielemans, the longer the window goes on, the more I feel like this is a player that we need to bring in, and he has qualities that we don't particularly have in the squad. And I think a lot more Arsenal fans are coming around to the idea of Tielemans. Because at the beginning of the window, I was like, well, what else? Like, what else? Who else are we looking at? Because it can't just be Tielemans. And I do think there was a lot of recency bias in there, as well as me thinking that he was just eating a lot of Happy Meals. I don't think he's the fittest guy out there, but the more that the longer the window goes on and the more you kind of look at what he's all about and stuff like that, I do think he's a good fit, for Arsenal, and would kind of take us up another level and give us another option. Because with Xhaka, here's the thing. Xhaka is a part of the furniture. He is that like person in the family that annoys the crap out of you, but you love them anyway. And like he's going to be there. So Xhaka is not going to go anywhere. And I'm kind of coming to that realization. And honestly, with the way that he's playing, I don't actually feel like I want him to go. That's true. Like I don't really want him to go. But would I want to add somebody like Tielemans? Yeah, I would. Just to make sure you have something else. We're going to be playing in so many competitions, and we know how this team can easily get stretched with a couple of injuries. So having Tielemans wouldn't hurt. It really wouldn't. Okay, we're going to have to block you because you're just putting stupid stuff in there. Jordan says, I'm not convinced that Tielemans is a massive upgrade on Xhaka, honestly. Still think we should get him, though. It's not a it's an upgrade it's an upgrade in regards to the position that the left 8 is now. So when we first started and Granit Xhaka and Thomas Partey were kind of sharing that double pivot, no, I don't think he would have been an upgrade on Granit Xhaka, because Granit was doing really well. Now that role has changed, which you cannot deny that when we played, and we were playing against Chelsea, and we were very attack minded. I don't think that's going to change. I don't think there's ever going to be a moment where Arteta decides to play more defensive. I think we're going to go and be even more attacking against the better teams. So, when you look at it and you look how the left 8 has evolved from a part of a double pivot to a more advanced role, especially now that Zinchenko is going to kind of be playing an inverted role, that double pivot Xhaka role is redundant. So now that left 8 is starting to be a little bit more of a free role and a lot more active in the box, Tielemans does fit it better. So in terms of like an all-around upgrade, we're talking about like holistically, is Tielemans a much bigger upgrade on Granit Xhaka? No, he's not. But in the left 8, is he an upgrade in what that position requires now? Yeah, he is. So I feel like that's kind of where we're at. Like, you know what I mean? So that's why I think he would be a good option. That doesn't mean that I think Xhaka is never going to play another game. That's not what I'm saying. I can even see a scenario where Xhaka and Tielemans play together as the 8s. Odegaard and Tielemans play together. Vieira and Tielemans play together. Xhaka and Vieira play together. That's the vibe that we really want to see. Like, we want to see different options. So I'm like, I like the player. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I do like the player, and I would like to see it get done. Um, but he slimmed down for us, you guys. Like, you got to get it done. I think it will, but that's pretty much where we're at. And I can understand why some people don't love Tielemans. Like, I'm not here to like really try to convince you. If this is a player that you're not really sold on, fair enough. I have my thoughts, you have your opinions, but I also remember when people thought that Gabriel Jesus wasn't a big upgrade, you know. JKL says, let's not forget we only missed out on top four because of injuries. The team without the new signings was already challenging Chelsea for third. Methinks we can be challenging this season. I'm not sure we're challenging, because we were like mid 60s points or something like that, high 60s points or something. And it was like 99 points, 100 points almost, to win the league. So I think we're still a ways away, but I do think that we're kind of like fighting for third and fourth. Like that's where I think we kind of are at with what we're doing right now. But I think you're pretty much spot on with that. I just wouldn't go as far as challenging, Hakum says, I think he's a considerable upgrade personally. Keenan says, I don't think Tielemans is necessarily an upgrade. We need Tielemans because we need two Champions League grade left eights to compete for that position. I like that. I like that view as well. If whether it's an upgrade or an option, I still think he'd be really useful. Junior says, I get what you mean, Jess, but I feel like Tielemans is suspect defensively, where Xhaka appears to be more strong defensively. I hear that. You guys know my thoughts on the whole Xhaka being a better defensive player than Tielemans, when we all know that Xhaka was a defensive liability before Arteta came in. I do think when you look at the way that Leicester play, they're quite open. They're very open. They're Wenger-esque in the way that they're kind of just like really open in midfield. They play the basketball game because they like to play on the counterattack, because that's what Vardy and Harvey Barnes and those players are really good on the counterattack. That's how they eat you up. So when you look at the way that they play and the way that we are just like right up on the halfway line with two really fast, athletic center backs, and how the distances are really short, it really doesn't allow for Xhaka to get exposed the way that he was getting exposed under Arsene and under Unai. I think it'd be quite similar with Tielemans. We don't really get the back and forth running. That's really not what it is. And that's where Tielemans really struggles, is once he's beat, he's beat. But I also think once Xhaka's beat, he's beat. So, and there's also like, the graphic that I showed you guys not too long ago about Tielemans the season prior to, not last season, but the season before. He actually had more ball recoveries than Basuma. And Xhaka was nowhere on that list. So I think it's overstated what his defensive liability is. And I think Arteta can put them in good positioning, Xhaka and Tielemans, so that they don't get as exposed as they can be in more open systems. But yeah, I hear what you guys are saying. I do hear what you guys are saying. And some people will have to see it. Some people will have to see it. And I understand that. Mikey says, also, if Tielemans arrives here with the right mindset, Mikel will improve him. Typically, Arsenal fan says, Jess, I think we're still 4 players off to compete with the teams above us. What about the right back situation? I don't think we have a right back situation. I think the right back situation is covered, for now. Is it ideal? No, you'd probably want another right back, just so you're not pulling center backs from the center back position. But the way that we play with basically 3 center backs and a more forward thinking fullback, it kind of fits us to have Ben White and Tomiyasu playing there. So I don't think we actually have a right back situation. I think we had a left back situation, because Nuno wasn't really working out, and there wasn't somebody in between Nuno and Tierney. Now we have Zinchenko. So the right back scenario is something that I do think we can push to next summer. I don't think it's something that we have to address now. I know that some people also want a bombing forward right back. They want somebody that's going to get into the attack and play like a forward, because that's what we're used to, because that's what Bellerin was. I personally prefer the way that we play now, where we have kind of like 3 center backs / like somebody that plays like a midfielder. I kind of like it that way. So until the way that we play changes, I don't actually think we need a right back right now. So I don't think we have a situation. Keenan says, with inverted fullbacks, the eights in Arteta's system are much more attacking. That's why City are able to play Bernardo and Foden in those positions. That's you explained that perfectly, Keenan. And we spoke about this on the channel that once you invert your fullbacks, it's kind of like those eights are just doing their thing. And you saw that against Chelsea. Xhaka was popping up on the right, Odegaard was popping up on the left, switching positions, making late runs into the box. And that's what you'll ultimately see. That's where I see Tielemans really thriving in that system, is that when he gets in and around the box, he has the cultured touch. He has the ability to put the ball in the back of the net, put it on the plate, for one of our attackers. He also has deep service into the box that I think Saka and Gabriel Jesus will really like, so it's just about options, right? But I like where we're going. I like where we're going. I really do. So let's see. Arnolito says, I prefer our midfielders to be high up than our fullbacks. I agree with you. There's about 500 of you guys in here. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Now, let's talk about something that's super important for this window, and that's to get Saka on a new long-term contract. So, word on the street, obviously, is that we're going to double his wages. Fine. He's on about 70 grand per week. Give him 150 to 200, whatever it takes, because with Saka, even though I do feel like he needs competition for his spot, mostly because I think he can handle it. I think he's not. Gabriel Jesus is kind of like on a level all on his own in terms of our attackers. Saka's below him, with Odegaard, and then Martinelli and ESR are below them. And so for me, like Saka, I think he can handle competition for his spot. I think he can work to continue to stay in the starting lineup, and he also needs somebody to deputize for him. But I still think you need to put him on a long-term contract and keep him because he's special. He's also somebody that I can envision, like similarly to like some of Pep's players, go from the wing into the 8 position as he gets older and matures a little bit more. I remember seeing Saka play in the left 8, and I thought, huh, that's probably something he could do in the future. He's somebody he can play left wing, right wing, left left mid, left wing back. He can do all those things at a very high level. And so Saka is such an important asset for us, and he's basically our, I wouldn't say franchise player, I would say our star. Like, the person that everybody's looking at. And I think he's our most liked player. I don't think this is somebody that you want to see leave just yet. And so, with Saka, getting him on the new deal is so, so important, as well as Saliba. So Adu said, on Saka's contract, talks are going. Good, very good. Everybody is happy. So that's kind of what you want to hear. You want to hear that things are moving in the right direction. And I envision this getting done. I don't think there's going to be any issues. Charles Watt said Arsenal are negotiating Saka over a new contract. Club is very confident that they'll get the deal done. And so, I think this is something that is so important. In the past, we wouldn't get them on new contracts. We'd let it run down, let them go for free or sell them to rivals. And we need to stop doing that. Saka is just not somebody that I want to see running around in a City shirt, until we really give it a good go, So, yeah, I think Saka is so, so important for this team. And, yeah, he's getting better and better. Love Saka. Mr. Smith says Saka is not leaving anytime soon. JKL says Saka is our Salah. Coach Dave says he's not as good as the fan base hype him up to be, but he's a very solid young player. DLG says my early memory of Saka is his first goal for the club away at the Europa League group stage at 16 years of age. It might have been 18. Yeah, there's not a lot of Sakas out there. There's not a lot of, I think that's why we have almost unrealistic expectations of, Norden Cuffy, Aziz, Patino, these guys, because Saka just went straight from the academy and into the first team without any issues. None. And I think it also helped him to come in, as a left wing back. It really, I think it did help him. And then he could kind of build up that goal threat. because I don't think he necessarily had it in the beginning. But yeah, like Saka is different, so and we all know that. Um, there's a reason why Manchester City have earmarked him as the Sterling replacement. There's a reason why, Klopp continuously talks about him. Um, there's a reason why, he's in the England team over some of the other players. I know some people will try to convince you that Saka is not a good player or he's overrated. I don't think he's overrated. I do think he still has a ways to go before we're talking about him in the same, vein as Salah and these guys. But I do think when you look at like young players in this league, I think he's beyond the young player conversation. He's not like Martinelli and ESR. They're still in the young player conversation. Saka is like an established player right now for me. Is he the best? No, but he's beyond the young player conversation for me. And I think he deserves a little bit more respect. I think he gets a lot of it, but especially like outside of our fan base, I do think he's disrespected. Karumi says Saka is a baller. Enzo says Saka will become a world-class midfielder once he plays there for a regular basis. Lone Star says, does Saka get in the Liverpool or City team and play regularly? No, he needs to continue to improve and develop at Arsenal. And I'm sure he knows that as well. Like, I don't think it'd be a good move for him to go there if that's what he's aiming for, to go there now. But I hope that with that, we have the opportunity to get to a place where he doesn't even think about leaving. And that's why qualifying for Champions League is so important. I do think if next season we can qualify for, Champions League, we'll be in a good place to keep him, and then start to move to the next level. I would love to see Saka stay a lot longer. I really would. Dixon says, I think Saka will sign the contract extension due to the fact that we're matching his ambition for the transfer window by bringing in proven winners in Zinchenko, Jesus, and we need to continue that. This is the first time, if you've been an Arsenal fan for a while, which I'm sure a lot of you guys have, you know what it was like for Cesc Fabregas, Nasri, Robin van Persie. That was a period of time where, it was that in-between stage where we had just kind of gotten rid of all of our established winners and brought in younger players, and we didn't match the ambition of our world-class players. Robin van Persie, Cesc Fabregas, Nasri, the world-class talents that wanted to play with equal talent or better. And we never matched it. We just kept bringing in the same kind of unknown young players that needed development. And I get that's the direction that the club wanted to go in. But the only way you're going to keep your players is if you at least try to match their ambition. And so I do think there's kind of like this false narrative around Saka that he's just like this really nice kid and he loves Arsenal, so he'll never leave. But I think Saka, the way that he has really stepped up and continued to progress in his career, I do think he has ambition. And so we need to match that. And not just match his ambition, it should be our ambition anyway. So this is the first time that I've seen the club really do that, is we have a young player, and then instead of bringing in like more young and unproven players, are taking the easy route, we're going for players that are known winners, and that will bring up that mentality in the team. So yeah, Yo-Yo says people patronize Saka. It's weird. DLG says, in your humble opinion, how much is Saka worth in today's market based on the fact that he's an English international? I mean, I don't think Arsenal should not be selling Saka if they were to decide to sell him for anything less than 100 million. But I think in the current market, he's probably worth somewhere between, like without the English tax, 65 to 70 million. Like that's where I think he is like right now, with like everything in consideration. We should not sell him for anything less than 100 million. That's what we need, a three-digit figure for Saka. Three, like, you know what I mean? But in terms of like what his actual market value is probably somewhere between 65 and 70. He's that good, you guys. So yeah, I love Saka, not too worried about it. Think it's going to get done. Love him to bits. Want him to have competition. Think he can handle it. Can play any position on the pitch. Bright future. Love him, love him, love him. There's almost 500 of you guys in here. like the video and subscribe to the channel. Olivier says, what's the goal for Saka this year with the new team? What did he get last season? I know he was in double figures for goals, right? He could do, I mean, and I think he doesn't shoot enough for me. I think he needs to shoot more, more shots. Every time he gets it, I want to see him shoot. Um, so he got in 38 matches, which is insane for him to be playing this amount, 11 goals and 7 assists. Saka got 6 yellow cards. I love that. That means Saka was, I mean, he was a lot chippier last season than I've ever seen him be. And again, I think that goes with this. He's such a nice kid. No, Saka, he has a little, he's not called little chilly for nothing. But he had 11 goals and 7 assists. I would say, that's just shy of 20 goal involvements in the Premier League. I would say I would like to see him get to maybe like 15 goals, 10 assists, 15 goals, 10 assists, something around there, 25 goal involvements. That would be a good improvement for him. Especially, I think, 25, goal involvements, I think would be good. That's where, he needs to shoot more, and I know that sometimes they'll be like, why didn't he pass? But as his ball striking gets better and he learns what his shot is, how to shoot a little bit better, I do think that sometimes his shot is a little bit on the weaker side. But as he like gets up, to speed on that, I do think we won't mind it if he shoots too much. And we've seen, like, I think the best kind of combination over the last couple of years. I know that people say Kane and Son, they've been absolutely immense over the last couple of years, but I look at Mane and Salah because that's kind of the vibe that I think we're going for. And they're selfish as hell. Like, when I always say selfish, like looking at each other side eye, like, why didn't you just like tap it to me? Fighting on the sideline because they're like, yo, you should have passed it to me. And they scored loads of goals. So I think when you're looking at it, you want to see Martinelli and Saka be a lot more selfish, and take more shots, but I absolutely love Saka to bits. Hope he stays for a long time. Moving on, Pablo Mari to Fenerbahce. That looks like it's moving. So there was some confusion on this earlier on today, but I'll just clear it up for you guys so you kind of get what's going on with that. Is that it's a loan, so that people are calling it a loan fee of 5 million. It really doesn't matter. Essentially, he'll be gone permanently, but it's a loan with an obligation to buy for 5 million euros. That's what it's looking like. And it was lost in translation because of the, different language barrier and stuff like that. But Turkish media is saying that, they foresee him coming because of, George Jesus, the coach for Fenerbahce used to be the manager at Flamengo. So he wants Pablo Mari back. And so even though they're saying it's a loan fee of 5 million euros, the way that I understand it is that it's a initial loan with an obligation to buy for 5 million euros. Because you're not going to loan him for 5 million euros. That's a lot. So this looks like it's going to be a permanent situation. Obviously, it has to get done. We've seen a lot of these kind of like these types of deals kind of fall apart at the end. We saw a lot of these for said Kolasinac. We were trying to get rid of him. But I do envision Pablo Mari leaving. I just don't think he was ever up to the level. It was early on, you could see he wasn't up to the level. You arguably could have said just him coming where he came from gives you a good indication of what his level was. But I'm very happy to see, Pablo Mari go somewhere else and for us to get a small fee for him. He really is not, he just struggled, he's just not up to it. So, he's somebody that I do think would be nice to move on. It'll be interesting to see if Arsenal do go for a left-sided center back. I do think it's on the cards if the price is right, depending on what happens with the attacker and the midfielder. But, to kind of complete that for a really good center back, group, I think you would need to bring in another one. I did see that somebody put out a tweet, and I had quote tweeted it, and they were kind of saying that Arsenal have the best center back depth in the Premier League. Um, with Rob Holding there, I don't actually think you can say that. We all have differing opinions on Rob Holding. Some people think he's just fine as a squad player. I think he's just fine as a squad player. If you're not trying to push, but if you really want to push, you want to make sure that, because essentially with Rob Holding, you have to change the way that you play, or you have to, know that you're not playing with the same type of center back that you would usually play with. With Ben White, Gabriel, Saliba, and White, you can play with a high line. And you have good technical center backs, back there that can start attacks from the back. With Rob Holding, you don't have that. He's a low block center back, so even though I do think he's really tried to up his game, he's not quite hitting the mark. And so, with Rob Holding there, I don't think you can quite say that we have the best center back depth when you look at Liverpool, and you can kind of see like Joe Gomez, even though he doesn't get as much playing time, he's better than Rob Holding. But we're getting there. We're getting there. Like, I would love to see us bring in another one, but if we can't, I don't think it's high on the priority list, but it'll be interesting to see if Arsenal move forward with a left-sided center back. But yep, not gonna be sad if Pablo Mari goes. Won't be sad. Cavino Latino says, "Don't respect the 5 at the back holding sauce." That's the thing, is like when we were doing that, he was really good, but when at the end of the season he became one of the 4 in the 4 back, it wasn't great, was it? Let's see. Dixon says we should replace Marie with Matvienko, who's Ukrainian, so he gel well with Zinchenko. I know we've been interested in him in the past. Ajax were also really interested in bringing him in to replace Lisandro Martinez, but they ended up going with Bassi instead. So I guess he's still available. It'd be interesting to see what happens with that. Don One says, I guess I'm the only one that likes Holding. It's not really about liking him. It's about, does he fit what we're trying to do? And for me, it's like, if he's there, we can't play with a high line, or we'll play it, but get exposed. So it's about making sure that you don't have to change your game, to suit one person. So yeah. And he's also not left-footed, and I would like to see another left-footer come in, but yeah. Yo-Yo says Holding is a hard hat and chippy buddy defender. He's not good enough to do it though. I mean, he really got done in the Spurs match. It's just, you can't have him in high leverage matches, can you? But he's a good guy to have around. He's a good guy to have around. Yeah. We have enough of those guys, by the way. The nice guys to have around. Excuse me, let me take a drink of my. Talking to y'all, I'm like, my throat gets dry. Yeah, so would like to see Pablo Mari go, and we'll see what happens with that. Now, Arsenal have rejected a bid from Betis for Hector Bellerin. It was a £4 million bid. £4 million. And also, this is coming from Diario AS. Diario AS, sorry. And they said that Arsenal have torpedoed the Bellerin transfer by standing firm on their valuation, and Betis are struggling to pay the amount needed. Bellerin willing to take a pay cut, but of little use unless Betis can agree on a fee. Betis need to sell first. So this is one that I think, similarly to Leno, which we'll talk about in just a second, will go the same way, where we'll end up conceding at some point and letting him go for a small fee, maybe a little bit higher than the 4, but we're not going to get much, for Bellerin. Let's keep it 100. And these players on these high wages, like, that's really what's holding us back. from being able to get rid of these guys, and the fact that they only have 1 year left on their deal. Bellerin and Leno both have only 1 year left on their deals. So they're gonna keep offering us little bits. And so, with Bellerin, I do think that it's kind of okay to just like kind of let him go for a small fee. Bellerin's not worth 15 million. I saw somebody say we should hold out for 15 to 20 million for Bellerin. Come on. Like, you're not going to get that. I think we're going to get like 5 million or something. You get his wages off the book and you move on from that. And the longer it goes on, the more likely that is the scenario. So that's kind of where we're at with that, but it's kind of like, damn, 4 million, that's a little bit. And then you think about the times like in the past where, Barcelona was trying to offer us 25 million for Hector Bellerin. We should have took that and ran, you know, um, that's the one thing I want to see from the club moving forward is when you get a 15 million pound offer from Wolves for Ainsley Maitland-Niles, you take it. When you get a 25 million pound like bid from Barcelona for Hector Bellerin, you sell. You sell before it's obvious that you need to sell. Once it's obvious, it's too late. So but if you thought we were going to get a lot for Hector Bellerin, you're sadly mistaken. 1 year left on the deal, desperate to leave, no future at the club. Like I said, 1 year left on the deal. They are going to wait it out and then offer us whatever little pennies that they have. Keenan says, we need to move our deadwood out. We have at least 8 players that need to move on. Even if we have to take big L's, just take the money and move on. Arnolito says, if we're not getting another right back, we need a center back. Cover for Saliba Gabriel. Samaru says we should have taken that and left Earth. Don One says at least 8 million for Hector. We'll see about that. Yo-Yo says it was roughly 40 million for Hecky B. He was all pace, mad overrated fullback. That's the thing. It's like you have to know. And I think some Arsenal fans would have been like, oh, why are we doing this? But you can find so many like young fullbacks that you could bring in for 10, 15 million that were just as fast as Hector Bellerin. That's all he really had. And, taking that amount would have been great. Sometimes there's going to be a moment, hopefully in the future, where we'll see Arsenal do this. Like, let me give you guys a hypothetical situation. I think next summer will be a good time maybe to look at Kieran Tierney. If he can't stay fit, if we're really struggling with him again, then I think you'll look at it. It may not be obvious because he'll have still quite a bit of time left on his deal because we gave him a new deal. But if he has a decent season and, he can't quite stay 100% fit, but somebody offers us 35 million for Tierney, probably take it. You probably take it, move on, see what's going on with Tavares if you want to keep him or not. Another scenario would be like ESR, if this season, he doesn't really nail down a position and, he's kind of still on the fringes of the squad, we'll have Vieira and Odegaard. We have Martinelli. We have all these kind of players. Maybe we bring in a Tielemans as well. Somebody comes in with a 35, 40 million pound offer for ESR, you probably look at it, but some fans will be upset by that, and say like, well, why are we selling some of our players? It's not obvious. When it's not obvious, that's the time to sell. So those are 2 players that I'm looking at, like, okay, what would it take? I still don't think it's this summer, potentially next summer. Especially if we make it into Champions League. I do think, you look at it and you say, okay, what can we do here? So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that. But I'm not saying like we should sell them right now. I'm just saying don't wait until we're here with those players. Once 2 years pass and Tierney is 27, nobody is going to buy him from us. Just saying, so there you go. And now with Leno, it looks like it's getting closer for him to go to Fulham. Obviously, I know some people are not going to be happy about this, but it seems like Arsenal have softened, their stance on Burn Leno. and what Fulham are willing to pay. Just in the last couple of minutes, Arsenal and Fulham close in on an 8 million deal for Bernd Leno, and that's coming from Sam J. Dean. Very reliable report there. Earlier today, it was kind of already out there that Arsenal were willing to take the 8 million. Now I'm sure there'll be some performance related and appearance related bonuses there with Bernd Leno, maybe 3, maybe 5. 5 million, you never know, but 8 million will probably be the guaranteed fee for this deal. And so this is good. We just need to move him on. You never know. This might be the deal that needs to get over the line so that we can get Tielemans. Now, I know some people were like, well, when they said that we need to sell somebody, that means we need to sell Xhaka. It's not what they said. That's not what they said. We needed to move some players on, a player on. We don't know if it's just about roster space or if it's about having too many midfielders. But when you think about the fact that like Torreira is probably going to go and Ainsley Maitland-Niles is probably going to go if you consider him a midfielder, that would open up another space. So moving on, Bellerin, Leno, Mari might actually be the trigger that we need to go ahead and get Tielemans. If you count together those little coins, got 15 million or so or whatever to spend on him if that's what you wanted to do. So, Fulham looks like they're going to bring him in. I think that's a good move for them. You're going to get battered with tons of shots, and you want to have somebody that's really good at a good shot stopper, experienced goalkeeper in the league that has something to play for, trying to get back into that German national team for the World Cup. Leno's going to be an excellent signing for them, possibly one of their best signings. And so I hope that if this deal gets done, that, Leno, has a great career moving forward. I do think he's been a great servant to the club. But I think we're just at the point now where we're in a different zone now. We're doing something different. Tala says Nuno has a future at Arsenal. I won't be surprised if he stays this season. Huge potential, but off course, defensive mistakes. Everyone thought Nuno will go, but I think the club wants to sell Tierney. Actually, the most recent reports from today actually say that Atalanta, going to Atalanta is actually close to getting done. And we want to put in an option to buy, or they want an option to buy, but we also want a clause in there that we could keep him even if they want to buy him. So, I actually think that Nuno will go and Tierney will stay this season. But next season, the fact that they want to make sure that they can keep him if they want, I do think is a sense of like what we all know about Nuno is that there's talent there, there's something there, but it needs to be refined. And so he'll get to refine those qualities away from Arsenal without all the pressure, and so that we can continue on with what we want to do without the stress. But if he ends up being a B-Tech Alphonso Davies, we will take him back. We won't just sell him away. So yeah, I think that this is a good move for everybody, but I don't think Nuno stays, actually. I think Kieran Tierney stays. And maybe next season, we look at selling Tierney and bringing Nuno in, or selling both of them and bringing in another left back, So this is the way that good clubs should act in the window. They should position themselves where, if there's a sale to be done, we're in a good position for that. But if we want to keep our player, we're going to keep him, Yo-Yo says, last summer people cried about not underselling Xhaka. And where are we now? Yeah, I mean, I just think we need to get rid of these players. And also, I know some of you guys are probably wanting to talk about Edu's interview. I will be doing a show later on that. I wanted to give it like its full due, like going through it all. But he did kind of talk about that, like it's better to not keep players around, to move them on. I don't know if Xhaka necessarily fits that category because we know how important he is to Arteta, but certain players, they just can't stick around the club. You need to move them on or put them in different scenarios. And, so I do think it's best to just move them on. Like you see somebody like Pepe, and him kind of digging his heels in and saying that he's only focused on Arsenal and next season or whatever nonsense he said. For me, that's just agent speak for pay us to leave. That's all I heard. So we might end up having to pay a player to leave. We might end up having to take some lower fees, but ultimately you don't want to keep players around that are not happy at the club. And I think we've gotten most of those players out, by the way. iGamer says a keeper of Leno's quality is 20 million at least, not with a year left on his deal. That's just the scenario that we're in. He has 1 year left on his deal, and if he were worth that, don't you think that people would be coming in? He doesn't have that much interest, so I think yeah, he might have been worth that last summer, but this summer with 1 year left, I mean, it's funny because Arsenal fans are like, with 1 year left, we expect to get the full value of a player, but we didn't like that City weren't giving us a discount on Jesus with 1 year left. Good clubs, like it's like, how do I explain? So we are not in the same position as other clubs. We can't live with letting Leno go for free. So we have to take something a little bit lower, but you guys want a discount for a year left, but then you want the full fee when we want to sell our clubs or sell our players. It's just unreal. Like, you know what I mean? So, and we can't afford to let him go for free. So that's just kind of where we're at with Leno. I do agree that we probably should be getting more for him, but not with 1 year left. And he just doesn't have that many suitors. The game's also changing. And I think goalkeepers like Leno are kind of in that space, like, the shot stopper goalkeeper will come back into vogue at some point. They will. But right now, like, it's all about ball players. You know what I mean? And we're selling Leno because he doesn't want to be here. And this is also, something that Arsenal fans, I do think, need to maybe think about as well, is that you can't just keep players around that don't want to be there. Leno has made it very clear that he wants to go. He wants to make the World Cup squad for Germany, so he needs to be a number one somewhere. He's not going to be a number one at Arsenal, and I really don't think, I think even though Ramsdale had a suspect end to the season, what you saw him do against Chelsea is exactly why he's starting over Leno. Leno is not a good ball-playing goalkeeper. He's not going to give us what we need for distribution. But you can't just keep him because you're afraid of Matt Turner. Of course, Leno's better than Turner. Leno is a number one goalkeeper. Your number two goalkeeper is usually just competent. Somebody that can just do the job when the number one goalkeeper is not available. They're not meant to be the same level. So you can't just keep him around because you're afraid to have a competent number two goalkeeper like everybody else. So that's why we're selling him. You can't just keep him here. That's not how things go. You know what I'm saying? So I think, of course, you'd rather have Leno and Ramsdale because then you have two number one goalkeepers, but who actually has that? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get that, but you can't just keep him. He's a number one goalkeeper. He wants to go. If you keep him another year, you're not going to get anything for him. You can't just let him go for free. So all those circumstances leave us to have to get rid of him. I think it's just that, it's just that simple. You know what I'm saying? Like, but I get why people are afraid because they don't want a bad number two goalkeeper. Everybody's number two goalkeepers are just competent. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's kind of where we're at with that. At 10 p.m., I do want to come back and talk to you guys just about to talk about Edu's interview, just a little bit more in depth because I did think it was very good, to be honest. So we'll talk about that a little bit later if you guys want to come back. But if I don't see you guys, back at 10 p.m., enjoy the rest of your day, have some fun, get outside, take in some air, like this video, subscribe to the channel. Hope you guys, enjoyed the show. Hakoum, quick thoughts on Bowen is that I think he's crap, is totally overstated. I don't like having conversations on, I think sometimes online football conversations are quite hard to have because you're either messy or shit. And Jared Bowen is not a crap player. He's not. He's actually pretty good. I think he fits on paper what we'd be looking for a right winger, left-footed, experienced in the league for 2 seasons. So he has some end product on him. you know, plays on the right-hand side, would definitely compete with Bukayo Saka. So he does fit a lot of those parameters, but obviously there would be some barriers in the way to getting that done. West Ham don't want to sell. He's going to cost a lot. Not only do West Ham not want to sell, but he's English. So we're talking what, 60 to 80 million for him. And so, I think he's a good player. I don't have an issue, with him. I do think it's just why. I guess my question to people would be like, why do you think he's so crap if he scored so many goals and has so many assists and clearly was one of the most dangerous wingers in the league last season? That would be my question. Is it just because he's not fashionable because he came from lower leagues and then came from the championship and plays for West Ham? What is it that makes him not fashionable? Is it because he's doesn't have his name is not Boinho? What is it? Because I do think so. I think honestly, like, even though I don't think Bowen will happen, I think he's getting the Ramsdale treatment from the fan base. It's not fashionable. He's not, somebody from another league that has a cool name and, blah blah blah. Because when I looked at his compilations, I thought dangerous, direct, one, end product type of player that would definitely compete with Bukayo Saka on that right-hand side. But he wouldn't be my number one choice. And I definitely don't think it's going to get done. So those are my thoughts on that. So I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.